hablan español. Okay.
No English at all?
¿Y no hablan inglés, solo español? Okay, yeah.
Yeah, so we're going to have to probably say seconds and repeat, right?
Did you want to do just like a, so we're just going to do like a brief presentation like we did? Are we waiting for Nick?
He's in a few seconds, right?
You want me to? Okay.
Well, it's 6:05. It's 6:05.
Want me to just greet everybody and then explain that we're going to do it in English and Spanish and hand that off to you to go first?
Yeah.
Okay. Hi, good evening, everybody. Thank you for joining us here tonight. My name is Fermin Preciado. I'm the Director of Development Services and City Engineer. And with us here is also Ben Matlock, our Deputy Director of Community Development and our City Planner. And just to let you know, we'll be providing a short presentation in both English and in Spanish to provide information regarding this subject. And then after that, you'll have an opportunity to ask questions. So, buenas noches y gracias por estar aquí con nosotros esta noche. Yo me llamo Fermín Preciado, soy el director de desarrollo de la ciudad y ingeniero municipal. Y aquí también tenemos a Ben Matlock, que es también un director y el planificador urbano de la ciudad. Vamos a presentar información en español y también en inglés sobre la ordenanza que los concejales de la ciudad están considerando sobre las casas móviles, y después de eso van a tener una oportunidad para hacer preguntas también.
Good evening, everyone. Happy that you guys are all here. I know there has been some concerns about what is happening with the mobile home parks and some information that has been kind of incorrectly distributed to people. And so I think we wanted an opportunity to make sure that we answered your questions tonight and kind of give you a little bit more information about what is, and more importantly, what isn't being proposed. And that way you guys have a little bit more information about what's happening at the city. All right. So kind of a few different things at a high level. So the city of Yucaipa has 42 different mobile home parks. In the 2016 general plan update, the city spent a lot of effort kind of looking at what is happening, kind of a land use within the entire community, and including the mobile home parks, and really kind of a few different components was important for the city council at the time. One was preservation of the majority of our mobile home parks, making sure that those standards were strengthened. And then there was also 7 parks identified that because of the condition, they may be eligible for conversion. And so the city established some provisions for it limited to those 7 parks rather than any park that would be subject to conversion. And so the city did adopt standards, and really as part of our housing element, we're updating the review process for housing that would be permitted in the conversion if one were to go forward, and really just addressing some of that element. No parks are being proposed to be converted. Nothing is happening on any individual park at this time. The city isn't the one that will convert the park. We don't have any control over the property owners, and really is just streamlining the process in what would be approved after that process went through, but the whole conversion process will remain exactly the same.
Thank you, Ben. La ciudad de Yucaipa está trabajando para, como ustedes saben, para proporcionar viviendas seguras y asequibles para todos los residentes aquí en Yucaipa. Y desde el año 2016, la ciudad identificó 7 parques de casas móviles que existen o existaban en ese tiempo en condiciones deficientes. Y ese mismo año también la ciudad adoptó un código para ayudar y para permitir la conversión de esos 7 parques en unidades residenciales modernas, seguras y también asequibles para los residentes. Y lamentablemente hay algunos rumores que los residentes de esos parques están en peligro inmediato de desalojo o de expulsión. Y la verdad es que eso no es cierto. Nosotros aquí en la ciudad hemos recibido varias preguntas de los residentes sobre ese tema y aquí estamos esta noche para aclarar las inquietudes y también responder a preguntas que tengan los residentes. Como ustedes saben, la ciudad mandó información por correo a los residentes de esos 7 parques y esperamos que sí recibieron esa información y han tenido una oportunidad de revisar esa información. Y también aquí tenemos copias allí atrás en la mesa para los que gusten copias ahorita. Esa información que les mandamos incluye documentos que explican la política que fue adoptada por la ciudad en el año 2016 y los documentos también incluyen las respuestas a las varias preguntas que también hemos recibido y que se han presentado aquí a la ciudad. Esa política que fue adoptada por la ciudad también permite a los dueños de esos 7 parques a reurbanizar los parques con nuevos residenciales de hasta 16 unidades por acre. Y la verdad es que lo único que la ciudad y los concejales de la ciudad están considerando en este momento es una ordenanza que permitirá 24 unidades en cambio de los 16 que se permiten en este tiempo. Y la razón de este cambio es que es un requisito del Estado de California y la ciudad tiene que cumplir con las leyes del Estado, como todos sabemos. Y el proceso que los dueños de los parques tienen que seguir para convertir un parque ese proceso no cambiará y ese proceso ha estado en efecto desde el año 2016 y ahorita no hay planes de cambiar ese proceso que ya adoptó la ciudad hace 7 años. Y si un dueño del parque gustaría convertir el parque, ese dueño tiene que completar un proceso. Y ese proceso es completamente voluntario. La ciudad no puede obligar al dueño o a ningún dueño a convertir el parque. Y si algún dueño quiere convertir el parque, las leyes estatales y también las leyes locales aseguran que los residentes de esos parques reciban notificación adecuada y también que reciban asistencia en la reubicación y asistencia de los impactos sociales y también impactos fiscales. Y también ese proceso también ofrece otros tipos de ayuda para los residentes, pero ese proceso necesita mucho tiempo para completar ese proceso. Y si los dueños de los parques, los dueños de los parques sí entienden ese proceso para convertir y también nos han dicho que el proceso que adoptó la ciudad para convertir los parques, que les va a costar mucho dinero y por esa razón desde el año 2016 la ciudad no ha recibido aplicaciones para convertir los parques, los 7 parques que se han identificado para conversión. Y con eso estamos disponibles para preguntas si tienen preguntas. Y como les digo, allí atrás hay más, la información que recibieron por correo, allí está atrás en inglés y en español. So, the information that you all received in the mail is also available in the table in the back, and it does answer, we try to answer a lot of the most frequently asked questions. And again, there's copies in the back, and we are available for questions, and we do ask that if you do have a question, you come up and speak into the mic since this meeting is being recorded. Oh, y también la información también estuvo en el periódico de aquí de la ciudad y también en varios lugares para que los residentes supieran de esta reunión esta noche. So the information was also available in the News Mirror. It was advertised in News Mirror, and it was sent to,
The information was sent and published in the Yucaipa News Mirror, YMRA, Met in WMA, and I also had Glory posted on Yucaipa Bulletin.
And then,
Both documents were provided, Mark, to the links, yes. No, the documents on Yucaipa Boulevard, both documents, English and Spanish, were provided by all the groups I just named.
La información que está disponible en la mesa y que recibieron por correo, lo mandamos en inglés y también en español en el periódico y también a los otros varios grupos que, what is RMR? Yeah. Y también en las redes sociales también pusimos la información en inglés y en español.
and it's on the city's website too.
And the city's website too, so.
Yeah, we're recording this on YouTube because we have people that could not come to the meeting, so that's why we would like you to speak into the mic so from home they can hear it.
Good afternoon. My name is Steven de la Portilla, and I live in Las Casitas Mobile Home Park. So based on what I just heard from right now, so because the city has gone in and seen that some mobile homes are substandard, did you guys notify the owners on these conditions? And if they were, is it the owner's responsibility to fix these conditions? And if they decide not to fix these conditions, then we are going to be, then the parks are going to be basically fined for not making the park up to code, and therefore they're going to close the mobile home parks down because of the owner's negligence to fix the conditions that the city has found to be substandard?
So these parks, and stop me because I'm not how you want to do this. So these parks were reviewed starting in 2014 and 15. Multiple people were involved in the review, and they were approved and put in 2016. This program that identified the 7 parks back in 2016 have been in this process that long, and not one park of those 7 none of them had showed any interest in conversion at all. It just gave a conduit through a local ordinance identifying what park, and then the application follows both the local ordinance and state law on if a conversion would ever happen. It comes through an application. But what we've repeatedly said is the only thing this item is doing that is going back to council is changing dwelling units per acre. Right now, the ordinance says 16 to 24. We're just letting them know that you don't have to go through a mid-step. You can start at 24 units to the acre. That's the only thing this is doing. Nothing else changes. Conversion, if a park is interested, is a pretty time-intensive application that has to get final approval by the city.
And if I may help as well, state law already allows for the conversion of mobile home parks to other uses as part of a state law program. As part of our general plan when we did the 2016 was, here's the uses. We want to try to preserve a number of the parks because of the condition that they're in, or their, senior restricted stuff. We want to make sure that those provisions stay so that fair housing issue isn't a problem that comes up. These 7 parks may be eligible for that, and so these are the uses that would be allowed if that were to happen. But the process for a mobile home park conversion, before we had done anything, would have applied to all of the city's parks across the entire community, so.
Do you want to repeat that in Spanish?
I can try.
No park is being closed down. No park is being closed down. None. We have 42. They're all staying open. None of them have applied for conversion, not one.
La pregunta que el señor presentó es que de los 7 parques que se han identificado de ser deficientes, la pregunta es que si la ciudad está, que si la ciudad está, va a hacer a los dueños del parque que arreglen los parques y los hagan mejor y es algo que la ciudad no está haciendo, pero ahorita estamos hablando de la conversión, que porque esos parques se identificaron por ser deficientes, tenemos que tener un proceso para convertir esos parques si los dueños quieren convertir los parques.
Okay, my question is this: Mark Westwood, Crafton Hills Mobile Estates. And I'm not in that, but I will help stand up for people who are in these 7 parks. To give an example, if you did a apartment or a housing unit, we should just say that, not a mobile home or a housing unit or apartment or condo, of 950 to 1,250 square feet, which is standard, and you could get, with driveways, access, sidewalks, and everything, 125 units on that acre of land, that they would charge around $3,000 a month. That's the going market value right now. That, ladies and gentlemen, is $345,000 a month, or $4,750,000 a year. So don't stand here and tell me that they don't want to develop them. Can't they just sell to these park owners to somebody who wants to develop the land? And yes, Bobby Duncan said it'd be about $17 million to do it. But that's a pretty good investment, good cash flow, I think. Wouldn't they just be able to sell to another person and this make this more lucrative to sell to a developer?
Well, to answer that, if it was so lucrative, they had the opportunity for the past 7 years to do it. And it's not to say,
Well, I guess to confirm, you identified 125 units on 1 acre?
Yeah.
So there's no, that's one apartment?
No, that's, I said,
wait, you gotta get to the mic.
125, I'm sorry.
So 125 units on 1 acre is what you're quoting for that number?
Right.
Yeah, that's not being proposed.
What I used as the apartment community in Calamasa. In Calamasa that was built, the senior apartment community, that's how big that is. And that's approximately what that is on.
Which community?
You know, I can't give you the name. It's right there on Barton Avenue. They just built it about a year ago, and I forget the name at the moment. But it's 125 units. Yeah, $3,000 a month.
But 125 units on 1 acre.
Yeah.
There is not a project in Calamasa that's 125 dwelling units on 1 acre.
Well, that's what I'm understanding what it was, and that was my question then. But still, 125 units is an apartment community that could be built on that. Do you agree?
125 units on 1 acre. Mm-hmm. We're talking about a capacity
950 square feet.
We're talking about a capacity of 24 units per acre. You have now 5 times increased the number of density of what is being proposed. And so your numbers are inflated at least 5 times.
125 units per acre. You're allowing 25 mobile homes per acre or per quarter acre?
No, so the mobile homes
Per
are,
quarter acre is what I understood this was going to be.
no, and when we had the meeting at the police station, I clarified it is not 24 units per quarter acre. It is 24 units per single acre.
Okay.
So you have
The
increased.
24 times 3,000 is about what, $90,000 a month?
It depends, and there's expenses that go
Yeah.
into it, but
That's the
coming
gross.
in here and talking about a number that's already artificially, 1 is far off base from what's being proposed, and then 2, artificially increasing the value by a factor of 5 and then using that
That's
as the
not a
public
factor of
comment.
5. That'd be a factor of 3.5.
24 to 125 is 3.5.
Yep. So let's just
24
cut that in half
times-
and say, let's cut that by a third
24
and
times
say it's
4 is
$1,287,000.
100.
Yeah,
right?
$1,287,000 a year. Then if you calculate that out, that's still pretty lucrative over a 30-year period. I mean, that would be worth developing that way. Don't you think that would be, as a city planner, worth developing that way?
I think the numbers you are quoting are grossly misrepresentative. And if you're
I'm
saying,
not misrepresenting you. I'm just a citizen trying to dwell through this all too.
okay,
I'm not trying to misrepresent anybody. I'm not
Okay.
taking a position. I'm just asking these questions.
okay, I don't have the pro forma of what you're showing, but the numbers you initially quoted were far off from what was being proposed, and so
125 units is not far off from the what's
124
built.
units on an acre.
125 units was not far off
Yeah.
from what was built over there in Calamasa. And I guarantee you that it's not on 6 acres of land.
Okay. Yeah, 25 times 4 is 100, so.
I'm short.
Yep.
Hey, Linda Witham, I'm at 35449 Balsa. I am not a mobile home dweller, but I am concerned about the city. Okay, and the way I understand this is that the only change you're really making to these, just the 7 mobile home parks, is that you're moving it from, what, 16 to 24? Am I right? Or to 24 at any rate?
Yeah, so right now, the way the system is set up is allows, if you were a property owner and saying, what can I build on my property? You can build up to 16 units per acre. Or if you go through an additional step, you can magically get up to 24 units per acre. There isn't any magic of what that allowance
No,
is.
that I understand.
Yeah.
That's pretty cut and dried.
And so, especially with current state law, if there's no subjective impetus for why you would be allowed 16 or 24, we really can't enforce it. And so, as part of the housing element, all of these programs, there's one for the Uptown as well, is if you're allowed to build up to 24, that's what's going to be allowed. There's no guessing game and no arbitrary metric that determines what that number is.
You know, on the surface of it, it makes sense. I understand it, and I'm okay with it. Why were just only the 7 and not all of the mobile home parks given this upgrade?
So part of when the Mobile Home Park 3 overlay was established, City Council and the GPAC and a number of different groups that were involved in looking at the general plan really kind of focused. We do have a lot of mobile home parks. Some are in varying different conditions. Some do provide, housing for seniors and other stuff. And so they wanted to look at kind of the approach on a multi-level and go, how do we preserve the parts that need to be preserved? The ones that maybe are going to be the cost to renovate them and bring them up to acceptable standards may end up pricing out the residents. Well, that's not really a good outcome either. And so the 7 parts were kind of born through that process then. And that actually does predate me with the city, because that was in 2014. I didn't join until 2015.
Okay.
But
Well, like I said, on the surface, it, makes sense. It's not a problem. However, I think those of us that are kind of delve a little deeper into things know that this area, Yucaipa, the Inland Empire, but the Pass area, is being targeted heavily by major developers, the big guys, the really big guys. They have the money. It doesn't make any difference to them to come into these parks and buy them out. That's chump change to them. Okay, knowing that we have members of City Council and the Planning Commission that are heavily invested in real estate, I have reservations, let's put it that way, that there's not something underlying going on. And like I said, the city has, not you people, you know what I'm talking about, has earned a level of distrust at this point. So we're looking a little deeper, looking at different angles, And I don't want to see these good people, you know, thrown out of their homes.
No, and I agree. Asking questions and trying to find out exactly what's going on, I think is worthwhile. I think of the Plan Commission and City Council, I think only one member is in real estate. But certainly the point is
Bobby
state.
Duncan,
Yeah, he's the only member that's a
Allgauer.
real estate member.
J.R. Algauer on the Planning Commission.
Well,
Donna-
this plan, at least for the conversion plan, would be an application to the city that would only go to city council.
Okay, well,
And the conversion plan follows in line with state law on if a park chose to go through conversion, there's experts entailed in that. Appraisers, fair return, location of where the resident would have the option to move, other parks in equal or greater condition. It doesn't go to the planning commission at all.
Okay, well, that's
Council
a good
has
thing.
to approve that application before that anything happens with that park.
okay,
And it was determined by city council back in 2016.
okay. All right. Like I said, I'm just looking at it different angles and hoping that, you know, we don't have something going on here that needs to come to light.
No, really, the bid change is on the back end of a property owner saying, what can I build on my property? It's removing some of that ambiguity. And this program mirrors a few others that the city is looking at in response to state law and the housing element. So it's very similar to a few other things that's essentially it's going to have the same process. If you're a property owner and ask the question, what can I do with my property? That question is going to be more clear cut and dry than it has been.
Okay. Well,
I think it's time that for me, at least, gives
Oh.
kind of response in Spanish
Yes.
before we go.
I agree. Good idea.
Las dos de las preguntas que se han presentado es lo que dije de lo que la ordenanza va a hacer posible para los parques que se conviertan a 24 unidades por acre en vez de 16. Y el señor presentó información de 125 unidades por acre, pero eso no es lo que está haciendo la ciudad. La ciudad está facilitando 24 unidades por acre, no 125. Y también la señora hizo una pregunta sobre los concejales y otros miembros de la ciudad que en su negocio, su trabajo es no en convertir parques, pero son realtors, o sea, venden propiedades y compran propiedades. Sí, y lo que dice la señora es que ella tiene miedo que eso va a hacer las cosas más fácil para esos parques que se conviertan a apartamentos o otras cosas, pero como dijo la señora, el proceso para convertir los parques el dueño tiene que completar una aplicación y presentar información a la ciudad para que la ciudad y también los concejales revisen esa información y ellos son los que van a aprobar el plan de conversión.
Thank you.
So if the owner doesn't put in their application for conversion, then the city will basically vote to convert? No.
It's property owner driven only.
Okay. And so if they don't sign to convert, then,
Nothing. You stay in mobile home park. It's an option. That's it.
okay.
Can you repeat that, Sylvain? It's business owner driven.
Yeah, la pregunta del señor es lo que les dije en mi presentación en español, que el proceso es completamente voluntario y la ciudad no está mandando a los dueños para que hagan la conversión. Es todo, si los dueños quieren hacerlo, los dueños van a completar la aplicación y van a presentar la aplicación a la ciudad, pero la ciudad no está haciendo a los dueños que conviertan el parque a otra cosa. Pues por ahorita no. Y desde el 2000, y desde el 2016, desde cuando la ciudad aprobó ese proceso, no hemos recibido una aplicación y la ciudad no está, no.
So
Y
right now,
ahorita
as
no
it's
tiene-
voluntary, if the owners decide not to go into this conversion and they don't bring the parks up to standard from their substandard condition, will the law fall upon, like, as far as building codes go, that they're not following state guidelines and then lead to fines and sorts and those types of things?
So it can follow. Mobile home parks are a little kind of interesting in that you do have the park owner that owns the underlying land, and then you'll have the individual coaches that are either owned by the park or resident-owned coaches. As a local enforcement agency, we oversee the Title 25 inspections, so the state inspections for the park conditions. And so we do make sure that the property owner of the park is complying with the state law for mobile home parks. Individual residents kind of have is a little bit of a separate thing. The individual coaches are inspected in the interior by the state. They have jurisdiction over it. But we will certainly, as we do with all the other mobile home parks, we want to make sure that the park operators are maintaining them in safe condition, that things like the fire hydrants or whatever kind of fire provisions that they have, the fire lanes, that they are not impeding that, because we don't want a public safety factor to come through. Just because it is a mobile home park, they don't own necessarily the coaches. They do need to make sure that the residents that are in that park is safe. And so we do make sure and enforce those provisions, as we do with any other apartment complex or anything else like that, but under the Title 25 requirements.
Las leyes del estado, las leyes estatal y locales ahorita no permiten a la ciudad obligar a los dueños a convertir los parques como esas leyes no permiten a la ciudad ahorita, la ciudad no tiene planes de hacer eso tampoco.
Ma'am, could you come over here?
Oh, okay, none of this will be triggered by the state. This is only triggered by if,
Excuse me, Jennifer, they're only hearing one side of the conversation on the streaming. Can she come over to the microphone and please ask that question? Thank you. Sorry to moderate.
So right now, we know that it's voluntary, but later on in the future, is there going to be like a proposal that is going to be like become law or anything like that?
no, this is not state-driven. This is not city-driven. This is landowner-driven, who owns the mobile home. The owner of the land for the mobile home park, they have to be the one that has an interest to do this. If not, everything stays how it is right now and has since 2016.
Yeah, and maybe
We will be informed if like it does become like, because right now it's like, to me it seems like it's being sugar coated, like we have no dues, like it's voluntary and this and that and that. But from what I'm hearing is like,
If the owner fails to listen to whatever's said as far as inspections go, then it would lead
to further action.
Yeah, so that the condition that the mobile home park owner keeps their park in doesn't necessarily trigger where, okay, now you have to do the conversion. None of that is there. What our role is as a city for the housing laws is we have to remove constraints to residential development in terms of our code. We're not obligated to build any housing, but we have to make sure that we don't have provisions that either make the process invalid with state law, or where we're creating a hindrance to it. And so if by the conversion ordinance changes that we're doing, because it deals with just what could you build on your property later, we've met what we needed to do with state law. the process for a homeowner or for a park owner to convert the site really is the same. All the performance stuff that they have to do is already in place either by state law or with our ordinance as well. But none of that's triggered. If they don't maintain their site, that isn't necessarily the grounds for the conversion. There's other penalties that they may have, especially if they're willfully kind of, really subjecting residents to, unfavorable conditions. Then there's other remedies for that, and that's specified in state law.
Because what kind of concerns me is like we just went through ownership. Like the trailer park sold the mobile home park to another new one. How are we the residents being protected by it? Like do the new owners know about this like situation, or they just went in there blindfolded? Because it seems like all of these parks that have been affected have been gone through recent owner change.
Yeah.
So that's concerning to me.
So certainly, on our side as a local enforcement agency and in discussions with other cities that have mobile home parks, there are some owners that are better stewards of their park than others. And so we do try to make sure that if they are trying to do something kind of underhanded that impacts the safety of the residents, we're going to go after them for that and make sure that they don't do that. Some park owners, management companies do have reputations, and so if we know that that's going to be a problem, we're pretty assertive on this is what the rules are. You got to do it, and it's even if we didn't have this process, we'd be doing that same thing just because that's our responsibility.
Okay.
La señora dice que algunos de los 7 parques que los dueños han cambiado, y la pregunta es que si los dueños nuevos, que si ellos entienden el proceso de conversión, y eso es parte del trabajo de nosotros de verificar que los dueños entienden el proceso para hacer eso. And I forgot the second part of your question.
She said, basically, they've had multiple owners?
Yeah, that's what I just.
Okay.
Yeah. So.
And then if poor conditions exist, can we
Oh.
as a city trigger
Okay.
conversion?
De los 7 parques, como dije, en el año 2014 a 2016, cuando la ciudad hizo el estudio y encontró que hay 7 parques que están en condición deficiente, la ciudad sí puede obligar a los dueños para arreglar ciertas cosas, pero no puede obligar a los dueños a convertir el parque por condiciones deficientes.
My question is about the data that you are using all this based on from 2016, 2014, when Hillary Clinton and Donald Trump were running for president. That was 7 years ago, or to be more accurate. Also in 2016, very interestingly, was a Supreme Court decision, Justice Kennedy, the majority ruling on that bans housing discrimination, a Herrera Section 8 housing discrimination case. The Supreme Court agreed, holding that housing discrimination victims are entitled to bring disparate impact claims under the FHA where policies or practices have a disproportionate adverse impact on protected classes without needing to establish the property owner or management's intent to discriminate. In other words, my question about all this is, how do you create these overlays? And in 1936, the Home Owners Mortgage Association was sued and lost that as well, using that very term called overlays. This is beyond my mind that you would use the word overlays. Isn't that just redlining?
I'll answer quickly and then more there. First answer is no. Using the term overlay is not equivalent to redlining. They're very different principles. The city has many different overlays, including one for the custom home overlay district, our resource preservation overlay, our hillside overlay, our mobile home part 2 overlay, which is for senior citizens. If you're implying that that is somehow discrimination or a fair housing issue, I'd be very interested to see the amicus brief that supports that decision. But really, But I think part of it is we do have the overlays that establish the zoning parameters for that. The overlay process has been part of the city's general plan terminology. So we have our general plan zoning map is one, and then we have overlays that kind of cover distinct areas of the city. That in itself is pretty consistent with many other places. It's not equivalent to redlining whatsoever.
La pregunta del señor es, su pregunta es del proceso en el año 2014 a 2016 que la ciudad usó para investigar los 42 parques y cuando la ciudad determinó que 7 de esos parques estaban en condición deficiente. Y la pregunta es del proceso y como explicamos es un proceso que la ciudad duró casi 2 años para completar y fue muchas investigaciones para determinar que de los 42 parques en la ciudad, los 7 son los que son parte de ese programa que se pueden convertir. Pero como expliqué antes, hay un proceso para esa conversión y los dueños hasta este día dicen que cuesta mucho dinero y es algo que no quieren o no pueden hacer en este momento.
So just to let you know, and if I can do a sentencing, you can repeat. We have 42 mobile home parks in Yucaipa.
That's what I just mentioned.
Okay, of which 41 are under rent control provisions. All 41 up until 2016 are in a protected overlay, meaning if a natural disaster came through, let me know if you want me to stop, that the park, if destroyed, could only be turned back into a mobile home park.
Dice que de los 42 parques en la ciudad, 41 de esos parques están bajo de esa distinción de control de renta y si algo pasaría y se destruyen los 41 parques, que los parques esos para arreglarlos solo pueden ser parques de casas movibles, no pueden ser otra cosa. Y eso es para los 41 parques.
And then, I don't know what year it was, we had hitching post converted due to less than 80%. It used to be a senior mobile home park, and due to management of that park, it fell below 80% senior. It automatically converted to a family park. I'm going to keep going, but I don't know if you want to repeat that.
Y dice que hay un parque, el Hitching Post, que cuando los números de los residentes llegó a 80%, que se convirtió a un parque de familia, porque antes era para personas mayores de 55 años.
To protect seniors in senior mobile home parks, the city council at the time adopted a second overlay to protect senior parks. So if a park falls below the 80, they can't rent out a space until they get that percentage back up to 80. It's a way that we could, because if not, it becomes discrimination in the state law. So when we put that protected group in the overlay, then senior mobile home parks would stay seniors to protect them. In 2016, that's when the third overlay came in, which identified 7 parks that you obviously live in and are concerned about, that identified at the time not only the condition, the staff report calls out that it was looking at crime rates, repeated calls for service, items like that. These parks have changed management, they've changed ownership over time. We're not saying that those conditions are the same now as they were then, but the whole point in what Ben is here to tell you, the whole point that the state is mandating all these changes in the general plan in the arena numbers is to provide affordable housing for people. increased housing opportunity. That is all this is doing. If the 7 owners of the properties for those mobile home parks choose not to look at an alternative use, your mobile home park stays a mobile home park. If there is an opportunity and they get the plan approved by council, which you will be notified, it's a very long, intensive project application. If it gets approved, there will be standards that have to be met if you are relocated. And then the goal would be, if that happens, then more affordable housing is brought to Yucaipa. Only happens if the property owner is interested.
So the majority of the information that she just provided is what I explained in my brief presentation. Pero lo que quiere clarificar la señora es que en los años pasados la ciudad de los 42 parques, la ciudad tiene grupos de parques que están protegidos por diferentes cosas y son como los parques que son para personas mayores de 55 años, que la ciudad ha adoptado unas políticas para proteger esos parques para que se mantengan para personas mayores de 55 años y es algo que la ciudad ha hecho para distinguir esos diferentes grupos de parques.
Well, you've presented quite a picture of the land use and land management that you're trying to protect. What I was wondering is there are several vacant areas of land currently in Yucaipa. I was wondering if any of those were allowed to become new mobile home parks or, quote, affordable housing.
So the answer, in terms of providing more affordable housing, some of those sites are selected as well. We have, as part of the city's housing element and zoning code, kind of a list of different districts that allow for different types of uses. And so we do have housing opportunities for moderate income and then more attainable housing, especially for kind of lower income categories. As part of the goal for providing affordable housing, in addition to the 7 parts and that policy that's already there, we also are including the Uptown District, which also has the 16 to 24 provision that's also being modified. And then we have a few other additional sites kind of throughout the city, including along Yucaipa Boulevard, that we are also looking. So it's not this is all our eggs in one basket. We have to have multiple different options. Just because if one doesn't pan out, then we have to kind of re-scramble and find other spots to it. And so part of the housing element doesn't assume in any way that all 7 parts have to be converted in order to even meet what we said would be the number. Is set up much more conservatively just because we don't expect that to happen anyways.
Por favor.
La pregunta es que hay muchas propiedades en la ciudad donde se pueden construir casas y apartamentos y parques, y el señor pregunta que si en esos lugares se pueden construir otros parques de casas móviles, pero como expliqué, el código de la ciudad sí tiene regulaciones que permiten la construcción de esas viviendas, como dije antes, que viviendas asequibles para los residentes.
Okay, I was also wondering, as part of any effort anybody decides to make when purchasing a park and converting it, I would assume that part of the approval process would require a review of displaced persons from the park, and that accordingly all provisions to accommodate those persons in similar affordable housing would be made.
Yeah, so the conversion process, which you are not changing, includes a relocation impact kind of report. So they have to go analyze where will these people go and what does that look like? You know, is there any units that could be moved? No. Okay, then we need to replace those. So there's a whole process that is required. And then with the district overlay provisions is that the number of housing that's removed, let's say if a park converts, they'll be building more housing in place of that. So if it was, let's say 100 units before, not on 1 acre, then they would build more units on top of that with the 24 units per acre.
Good. Thank you.
No, sorry, a lot of the information, well, a lot of the questions that are being asked in English, I'd already provided the information in Spanish, so I feel like I'm being redundant, so I'll let that one go.
Okay, one last question. The parks, like Melody Land and places like that, maybe Hitching Post may be on an acre of land, I don't know. But these parks generally are 1-2 acre land parcels, at least, correct?
Are you asking the size of which
Yeah.
individual park is? Mm-hmm. They're on more than 1 acre.
Right.
Yeah.
2 acres, 3 acres?
I think some up to 7 to 8 or so. I don't
7,
have
8.
the
So that's where I was getting my figures originally, because I was looking at that apartment community they just built in Calamasa. Those figures that I stated earlier are pretty close, maybe even conservative. So what is to protect these people when the current market value of an apartment or a condo or whatever you want to call it, if it were to be rebuilt on this, which could very well be, everybody in this room knows is $2,500 to $3,000 a month. Now, I own my own mobile home and I pay a certain amount of rent and I'm on rent control and I'm very grateful for that. And I know a lot of people are still paying payments on their mobile homes here, but their basic land rent under rent control, maybe $500 or $600 a month, $400 some of them, okay? How are we going to provide them affordable housing in that same manner that they're paying, okay? When you'd have to relocate them, what community or park owner or apartment community would ever rent to somebody for $600 a month? So can you state that in Spanish for our people here? Would you please?
I can certainly try.
I can repeat the question, you can repeat after me.
Please.
Okay. If the average apartment or condo or housing unit is $2,500 to $3,000 a month,
Que si la renta para rentar un apartamento o un condominio es de $2,500 a $3,000 por mes.
and I'll shorten this, and the average mobile home park space only without paying on the house or the mobile home is about between $400 and $600 a month.
Y la renta del espacio en un parque de casa movible es de $400 a $600
So
al mes.
say this occurred anywhere, not just in this overlay, but those 7 mobile homes that you picked in 2016.
Say that again? Sorry.
Say that these mobile homes, not just in these 7 parks, but other mobile homes around there, that you created this overlay in 2016. One of them was decided to relocate.
Que si otro de los parques que no son de los 7 parques que se identificaron, que si uno de esos parques se va a convertir,
I'm 100% sure that you couldn't find that comparable rate at $500 or $600 a month, even a mobile home space, no less an apartment or condo anywhere in Southern California.
que va a ser difícil para encontrar otro lugar para las personas que viven en ese parque que paguen la misma renta en otro lugar aquí cerca en Yucaipa.
So how could you protect them and how could you relocate them? That's an impossibility.
No, it's not.
Really, Jennifer?
Yeah, because
Tell me how.
I'm going to, Mark.
Y la pregunta es que cómo, repeat that question again, please?
Tell me how.
Tell me how you're going to relocate these people at the same rate at $500 or $600 to guarantee that their rent is safeguarded when you can't find another spot for them for that, because no mobile home park is going to rent new rent space for that, because they've been on renter control for years, and no apartment around is in their right mind would rent for that when they can get $25,000 or $3,000 a month.
Que cómo se van a reubicar esas personas a otro lugar por el mismo precio.
So that's a part of the conversion process. And that's how, through that process, that we have our local application along with the requirements of state law. There are provisions in there when a person has to move. And that's why we probably haven't had a lot of takers for the last 7 years, because it's very expensive to move people to an equal condition or greater, put them in the same provision of rent control that they're in, or give them fair market value for their coach. That's the plan that they have to present, that's then presented to the city and verified through our own experts that the person is getting placed in an equal or greater condition, has received fair market value of their coach if that's what they prefer, or they're relocated in another park at the same base rent that they're currently in now. And if the park, hang on, Mark, if that owner of that property can't pencil that out and it's not a good return on their investment to redevelop it, they're not going to redevelop it, which is probably why we haven't had anyone even interested in this last 7 years.
Well, if I were a park owner and I had that lucrative condition to operate under, I would sell the park. And here's the deal. You sell it to a new developer, out-of-town developer, and he finds a million other reasons to get these people out of the park over a 5 or 6 or 7 year period, whether it's late payments on their rent, whether it's not keeping their coach up, however they want it. They really don't have to have a reason to say goodbye and give you, a 3-day pay or quit notice, or, you're creating a condition that is very, very predatory for these people. And that's my big concern.
the
I'm not
state
trying to
law-
argue with you.
But the
I'm
state law
trying
is
to, can I
very
finish?
clear
'Cause
on how people get evicted. You can't just.
We're talking
evict people.
procedure, you're not talking reality. Thank you.
So I think, one, it is helpful to note the relocation process and conversion of mobile home parks is already allowed by state law. And so the hypothetical presentation that's being offered is something that can already happen, but it isn't something that happens very often. It's very few or seldom that a relocation process goes, completely forward. It isn't like there's a buyer that's flipping mobile home parks in every community. That's not something that's happening.
So forgive me.
You got this on the mic.
I hate to be the only one talking.
Well, can I? Lo importante para contestar la pregunta que preguntó el señor, lo importante es que la ciudad no es responsable para preparar este plan de reubicación. Esa responsabilidad es de los dueños de los parques. Por eso, como dije, por eso los dueños de los parques dicen que no pueden hacer porque es mucho trabajo y mucho dinero para hacer eso. So, la ciudad, no es la responsabilidad de la ciudad para preparar este plan y para hacer eso. Ese es algo que tienen que preparar los dueños y presentarlos a la ciudad con la aplicación para que los concejales revisen el plan y ellos van a determinar si es algo que se puede hacer o no.
Okay, and forgive me, I promise.
I just explained that the relocation plan preparation responsibility
I
is
understand
not
what you
based
said.
on, this is for the benefit of the
Yeah.
other group, is not the responsibility of the city. The relocation plan and that conversion application is something that the owners are going to have to do and present to the city. So we're going to have to, the burden is on the owners, not on the city. The city and the city staff and the city council are going to review that plan and ultimately approve it. But again, that burden is on the park owners, not on the city. And again, I hate to sound repetitive, but that's the reason why to this date, over the last 7 years, the city has not received a conversion application, because it's so much effort and so much money for the park owners to do that.
In the last 7 years, they weren't at 24, they were at 16. But now, you're saying to me, and this is my last round of questions.
The option was 16 to 24.
16 to 24, but now it could be 24.
We're saying it can go, yeah, to 24.
Right.
There's no
So-
subjective arbitrary process for determining whether or not you could do 16 to 24. You could still do
So
24.
this is at the state level that this is being decided? And you're trying to comply with this ordinance at the state level? I'm trying to figure out why, if you can already do this, why is there such a push for ordinance 429 in the first place?
Okay. So I will clarify again. Pursuant to the,
Can we have that said in Spanish, please? First, what I just said? Por favor.
El ordenanza que está contemplando ahorita la ciudad de permitir las 24 unidades por acre, eso es lo que el señor está refiriendo a esa ordenanza que la ciudad y los concejales van a considerar el lunes. Y dice que por qué es tan importante considerar eso ahorita. Y como les expliqué, es porque las leyes en el estado de California están cambiando para cada día. Y simplemente la ciudad está considerando esta ordenanza para seguir las leyes del estado, porque si no seguimos esas leyes y no cambiamos el código y la regulación de la ciudad para permitir los 24 unidades, también es algo que la ciudad no puede hacer porque tenemos que seguir las leyes del estado.
all right, so there's a few key components. One is a resident or the property owner could already decide to build up to 24 units under the existing code. The process right now has a subjective metric for 16 to 24. Because it's a subjective thing, the Housing Accountability Act means that if the city council, let's say, were to deny a project at 24 units per acre and said you gotta build 16, the rationale of why they denied it would not be valid under state law. So already that's a loophole issue that we have in our code. Why are we proposing the ordinance now? Because we have a unit capacity already built in for this overlay district. In order to get credit for the arena, we have to amend our policy. If we don't get to count those units, and we have to make them up somewhere else.
So in essence, you're just saying that the mobile home park owner's convenience for them, the 16 to 24, to make sure the city doesn't arbitrarily decide one way or the other, that's a good thing for mobile home park owners. But how is that a good thing for these people that live in these homes?
Okay. Aside from the inflammatory and, I guess, suggestive nature of that comment.
It wasn't inflammatory. That's an honest question I have for myself.
Okay, so it isn't for the benefit of the mobile home park owner. State law, SB 330 in the Housing Accountability Act says, you as a city, if you're allowed to build up to this density, unless you have an objective design requirement that says why they can't build that, the city is not in the position to deny that project. It is not to the benefit of a park owner or anyone else. It's to the benefit of every property owner that has a property in California to say, if I'm allowed to build this, you as a city can't just make up a pie-in-the-sky reason to deny the project. Part of it is a little challenging because we do have to create much more objective requirements for all our housing projects to pass muster. But the reality is it also removes some of the political process into it. You know what the rules are. You already know what you can build on your property without the city making up a reason to deny it. And that is under state law. I see you kind of smiling back there, but that is the process on it. If someone took it and said, hey, you guys are not approving 16 or 24, you're only going to do 16, they can and successfully will challenge the city, and the city will have to pay for each unit that is not approved as part of that. And that is under state law. So when it comes to subjective requirements for denying projects, the city is not in a position financially to sit there and go, well, we're going to roll the dice and hope for the best, because there is a monetary policy to the general fund for that subjective process.
The city is a corporation, right?
Can
Yeah, and I want to make sure it's clear. This is state law, and these are the provisions that we have to work under. This isn't the city changing the rules. This is what we are obligated to follow.
Las leyes del estado dicen que las ciudades tienen que permitir hasta 24 unidades en un acre y simplemente, otra vez, la ordenanza que está considerada en la ciudad es para permitir esas 24 unidades en un acre y como dije otra vez, es algo que las leyes del estado está obligando a la ciudad a cambiar el código y simplemente la ordenanza es para hacer eso.
Thank you. The city is a corporation, incorporated, I think, in 1984 or 1986. 89, okay. I knew I was going to get that correction. But the city is a corporation, so don't take any of this personal. I'm not attacking Mr. Matlock or Ms. Crawford or anybody else that's here. I'm just concerned for our citizens and myself, because I'm one of those citizens that this could trickle down to. And so that's why I'm asking these questions. And so I don't want to walk away and be insulted and say I'm being inflammatory. Thank you.
Buenas tardes. Pregunta, dejamos a un lado que la compra y venta, ¿verdad? Son 16 unidades, las quieren convertir a 24 unidades. Es recortar el espacio a las personas que ya tienen ahí su casa móvil, es recortar, ¿no? Porque quieren agregar 24 más. Mi pregunta es, ¿en qué aspectos son deplorables las mobile home? ¿En cómo está en la construcción o en cómo se está el parqueadero? Porque pues reconocemos que también nuestro parqueadero no está bonito, pero ustedes, como dicen, no pueden obligar al dueño a que lo venda, pero sí lo pueden obligar a que lo componga. Entonces, esa es mi pregunta. De 16 unidades a 24, y en sí, como ustedes como ciudad, ¿en qué les beneficia? Porque a nosotros, pues me imagino que nos recortarían, ¿no? El espacio.
El proceso de conversión no va a permitir a las casas móviles. Si se convierte, se van a construir otras unidades, pero no van a ser casas móviles.
Oh, ok.
Sí.
Las casas móviles se tienen que mover. No. Oh.
Her question was if the city is going to allow the 24 units per acre, then where do the mobile homes end up? Do they end up on part of the park and the other side? Clarify that part of the conversion is to not allow the mobile homes and units will be constructed. So you're not going to have half and half.
Yeah, and the units, and the units could be, as part of the relocation impact report, there's an assessment of the condition of the unit. Can that be moved? Will it survive the movement? If it can't, then that unit, as part of the relocation, would be then replaced with another one because of that condition. And so some mobile homes transport better than others depending on the age and year.
And if the coach can be moved, it's at the expense of the park owner, not the resident.
Y si se convierte en un parque, el plan que va a preparar el dueño para la reubicación es si se puede mover la casa movible, se puede mover a otro parque, o si no, el plan que prepara el dueño tiene que ayudarle a los dueños de las casas móviles a tener otras opciones.
Ok, sí, porque como para residentes se me hace algo ilógico, porque de una o de otra manera a nosotros no nos beneficia en nada. Yo pienso así, porque dicen darnos uno más digno, pero también de cuánto estamos hablando. Yo pienso que somos de un salario mínimo y como para movernos a otro que esté más, como dijo el señor, ¿cuánto están las rentas de los apartamentos? ¿Cuánto están las rentas de las casas? ¿Cuánto está una casa también comprarla? Ya estamos hablando de $500,000. Y con un salario mínimo, yo digo, para mí no creo que sea nada beneficioso como residentes de allí.
Sí.
Y para el dueño, pues yo pienso que sí le va a convenir, ¿no? Y a ustedes, pues no sé en qué aspecto les podría beneficiar.
Pero también el dueño en el plan va a tener que identificar la asistencia para todos los dueños de las casas móviles. y no sé si es un beneficio para el dueño, pero por eso les va a costar mucho dinero porque van a tener que preparar un plan para cada casa movible, si se puede mover o si no se puede mover.
Ya, porque como estamos ya ahorita con la economía, como dice el señor, no nos van a querer cobrar $600. No vamos a pagar $600.
Sí, y eso es parte del plan que tiene que preparar el dueño, tiene que buscar otro lugar y
Ya.
por eso la ciudad, la respuesta es que se les va a ser muy difíciles a los dueños para preparar ese plan.
Y yo pienso que como dueños de las casas móviles, pues es nuestra obligación componerlas, ¿verdad? Pero ya del parqueadero ya es responsabilidad del dueño. Y como dicen ustedes también tienen el derecho de obligarlo a que esté un poco mejor el parqueadero.
Sí, y eso es algo que la ciudad sí está haciendo.
Ok, gracias.
Oh, and I'll go back the other way. No, I just clarified that a lot of her questions, her concerns that she proposed, they need to be addressed in this relocation plan. Whether it, and then her follow-up question was whether the city can do anything when it comes to certain safety hazards, parking and access, and said, yeah, that's where the city can get involved, and the city has been proactive in doing that.
Buenas tardes. Mi pregunta, como dijo la muchacha que se acaba de ir, de tener la disminución de trailers en el parqueadero, como yo vivo en una que tiene más de 50, entonces, ¿qué va a pasar con nosotros? Que van a quitarlas, van a solucionar el problema de cada, porque hay mucha gente en mi lugar que no es de recursos, como dijo ella, ¿verdad? Y yo soy una de ellas. Yo vivo al día. Ustedes van a hacer un buen lugar, un parque, algo, pero ¿y la solución para nosotros, como de bajos recursos, qué nos van a dar ustedes a nosotros? Porque ustedes ya van a decir, como dice la situación, como Poncio Pilato, me lavo las manos, ¿verdad? Aquí yo vengo y le digo al dueño del lugar, ¿sabes qué? Que aquí limpias y dejas tantas y se acabó. Pero, ¿y los demás? ¿Qué vamos a hacer? ¿Qué vamos a hacer nosotros?
Y
Sí, pero no van a dar un pago como el que tenemos ahorita. No lo van a dar.
no,
Porque
pero,
no van a hacer casas de gobierno. Las casas de gobierno dicen tanto ganas, tanto pagas. Y no nos van a hacer eso.
no, y como le digo, el plan para la conversión, eso es algo que los dueños van a tener que presentar a la ciudad. La ciudad no tiene, no es responsable para hacer eso, pero sí vamos, la ciudad sí va a revisar la aplicación para confirmar que el plan que el dueño preparó tiene la asistencia para las personas que dice usted, personas de bajos ingresos y todo eso, para ayudarles a buscar otro lugar. Y porque ahorita es difícil buscar otro lugar con la misma renta y todo eso, por eso se les hace muy difícil a los dueños para preparar ese plan, y por eso no hemos recibido un plan.
Sí, porque si se ponen, digamos, un ejemplo, que dejaran el lugar, ¿ok? Se van a quedar este lugar de este parqueadero, se va a quedar aquí con estas cosas, esas situaciones y esto y esto y esto. Ok. Cuando hicieron que pusieron del piso, ¿cómo se llama? Chapopote, arreglaron la, ¿verdad? Oye, ¿quién lo pagó? Nosotros. Nosotros lo estuvimos pagando. ¿Eh? El dueño no lo pagó, lo pagamos nosotros. Si ustedes están pidiendo igual, ¿quién lo va a pagar? Nosotros. El problema va a ser nosotros como siempre. ¿Eh? Nosotros somos los que estamos quedando en el limbo. Nosotros no estamos viendo que nos están ayudando. Nos están ayudando supuestamente a vivir cómodamente, pero no económicamente. ¿Me explico?
Sí, por esas razones, las leyes del Estado y las leyes locales protegen a los residentes no tenemos ahorita el documento que tiene toda la información y todo lo que tiene que estar incluido en este plan de reubicación, porque es mucha información, pero sí contiene mucha información y muchas cosas que protegen a los residentes y las cosas que usted dijo ahorita.
Sí, porque yo no quisiera que el año que entra, como ya tienen los planes y todo eso, que el año que entra ya me digan, ¿sabes qué? Aquí está tu papel y... ¿Eh? ¿Y qué vamos a hacer nosotros?
Sí, y como le dije, el proceso obliga a los dueños para dar notificación a los residentes y también...
¿30 días?
Do we know what the notification period is if the owner was to propose a conversion plan?
¿Tú piensas que en 30 días, 60 días, vamos a tener para juntar para pagar una renta?
El dueño va a tener que notificar a los residentes que van a completar una aplicación y el tiempo para preparar un plan de reubicación van a ser como 12 meses, va a ser mucho tiempo. When
I was going to say that.
Okay.
So we're going to try to double check because the relocation process is established by state law. State law is going to establish the minimum requirement, and so our ordinance can't go anything less. And I don't think we modified the timeline from what state law specified. And so the process. Yeah, so the relocation process, the timeline would be the same as already allowed by state law. It wouldn't be any shorter.
Oh, we're looking it up.
I don't know off the top of my head. We can't make an ordinance that's more than the.
Oh, yeah, you would be,
everybody
in the park would be notified.
Yeah, every resident would be, and this is provisions that's already spelled out in state law. So our ordinance can't shorten any of those windows.
So what is that provision say?
We're trying to double check. I don't know the government code section off the top of my head. Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, it's state law, so whoever prepares it will be checking for that if that were to happen. But that's allowed under state law. We're not changing any of that.
O sea, ya está todo aquí, ya está todo aquí. O sea, la solución no la llevamos nosotros a la casa. ¿Por qué? Porque la solución está aquí. La tienen ellos. Te vayas a donde te vayas, la ciudad lo va a agarrar tu casa.
So
Ellos van
the
a
residents
decir,
are
¿sabes qué?
notified the same
Tienes
time as the city.
para que tu gente limpie, para que tu gente haga, para que tu gente todo diga. ¿Y qué va a pasar? ¿Ok? Tengo tanto tiempo, pero y ahí está las multas. Ahí están las multas, ahí están las multas. Oh, I'm sorry. Ahí están las multas. ¿Y qué va a pasar? Lo que va a agarrar él es de que va a
Okay,
agarrar el
well,
dinero.
I don't know what, so, the answer to the question, and it does reference our local ordinance and state law, is that the city is notified the same time the residents living in the park. So you get the documentation the same day the city does. And then there's processes pursuant to state law on notificate and ongoing submittal of documentation. You get noticing the same day the city does,
Dice que,
that an application has been filed. No different than a net operating income or a fair return. You know, there's provisions in the state law along with our local ordinance that require the notification.
la ley es del estado y de la ciudad. Dice que la ciudad se va a dar cuenta que el dueño quiere convertir cuando los residentes reciben la información al mismo tiempo.
Pero es que es lo mismo. Pero mira, al fin de cuentas es vender. Es simple, porque si están diciendo, mandaron la carta, yo sí la leí ayer y estaba diciendo que se llegó a rumor que se va a vender el parqueadero, pero que ese no es el plan. ¿Qué es el plan? 16 unidades a 24 unidades en un acre. Ahorita te estoy preguntando que si yo todavía en mi inocencia, que iban a meter más casas móviles. Y estás diciendo que casas móviles no van a ser casas móviles. Al fin de cuentas es lo mismo. Van a vender y quieren hacer apartamentos, quieren desaparecer ahí las casas móviles. Eso nada más. Y yo digo, si les preocupara a ustedes como ciudad, porque de mirar a los parqueaderos que están feos, como te vuelvo a repetir, por fuera o por dentro de las personas como viven. Porque si decimos que por cómo viven por dentro, ahí sí no hablamos, porque hay casas que viven, olvídate. Entonces, si nos basamos afuera del parqueadero, afuera de las casas, ustedes tienen el derecho de decirle al dueño que componga. Uno como residente limpiar, pero él también tener el parqueadero en buenas condiciones y ustedes los pueden obligar. Así como unos también a uno lo pueden obligar, porque no es que si queremos, nos obligan. Y está bien para una disque mejor tener vida digna, pongámosle así, pero yo de mi punto de vista es vender y meter apartamentos, no es de 16 a 24, trailers, yo pensé así, casas móviles, no, son apartamentos al fin de cuentas.
Sí.
Okay. Ajá,
No, oh, okay, so, yeah.
Can you state the question so that the listening audience on YouTube can understand what you're talking about?
Yeah, her question was regarding the 16 to 24 units per acre. She was under the understanding that that meant allowing up to 24 mobile homes per acre. And I mentioned if you convert, if the park owner decides to convert, it's going to be a complete conversion to either apartments or something else, but not mobile homes. And that's what we clarified.
This is important for the Spanish. Oh, for the Spanish? Okay. Okay, mi pregunta es muy simple. Hola.
You guys, they can pick up on the mic, so if you can not, to keep it so everyone can hear.
Okay, I can make this question in Spanish. Okay. A mí me queda muy claro que obviamente estas casas que van a ser duplex o lo que vayan a construir no es para nosotros. Perfecto. Mi pregunta es si nos llegan a venir a nosotros, es un proceso largo, ¿correcto? Pero si pasa algo, me refiero a que, no sé, si nos prometen un lugar mejor o lo que sea, y en ese proceso nuestra trailer se descompone, digamos que la tengan que enviar, son trailers viejas las que tenemos la mayoría. Sí, los dueños, los nuevos dueños, supuestamente nos van a ayudar, ¿no? Pero hay algún costo, un costo, digamos, no sé, un aproximado. Una trailer cuesta, ¿qué? $40,000, $50,000. Ahora, si nos mueven y esa trailer se descompone, ¿qué va a pasar con nosotros? O sea, ¿nos van a pagar una trailer igual? ¿Sí me pregunto? No, o sea, me voy a algo barato porque realmente las trailers ahorita están carísimas. ¿No? Entonces, digamos, en ese proceso de reubicación, ¿qué beneficio tenemos? O sea, porque sí, y como dice la señora, vamos a llegar a un lugar mejor probablemente, pero de ahí en fuera, si pasa algo, me refiero, ¿hay alguna aseguranza que nos cubra a nosotros como inquilinos o algo así?
¿Quiere preguntar la pregunta también en inglés
Nah, ya me aburrí. No se crea. No, está bien así. Well, my question is, if something's happened in the reubication process, you know, like my mobile homes broke, whatever, something's happened, we had any insurance for that? Because one trailer right now, it's around, I don't know, at least $60,000, right? So, but if something's happened with us trailers, what's going on? You know, like, what happened with us? We had insurance for that. The owner of the new land or whatever it is, they gonna pay for that? Or?
So, yeah, I mean, and I don't have it all memorized, but it's part of state law. But if you have a coach that's $60,000, the report, the application has to have a fair return on your investment. So they would get an appraiser. If they deem that appraisal that unit is $60,000, then they'll either have to pay you if that coach can't be relocated. They'll have to give you fair market value for that coach.
Okay. Yeah, that's it.
Trust me, the state law is very specific and very behind ensuring that residents in these mobile home parks are not displaced at all. If anything, they're given equal or greater than what they currently have. And our local ordinance even sets a perimeter of, because we have so many mobile home parks in Yucaipa, there are available empty pads that coaches can be moved to if you know, their structure allows them to be moved, or coaches that are vacant that could be re-rented. But I think the parameters only go far that if there's not a local location, the farthest they can go, I think, is Redlands or 15 miles. So we wanted to make sure they couldn't just put you, 80 miles away, that we were very specific that it had to be within the local area.
Well, sorry. In the last meeting, I hear he was around 25 miles. So,
I think it's 25 miles.
25, right?
I'm drawing off memory on it.
pero ¿qué tal los que
15.
trabajan?
Oh, it's 15 on the ordinance?
Yep. And there's a moving allowance. There's so much information in these documents that list out all the requirements that this plan has to address. That is toward the benefit also of you will not be displaced. You will not be not compensated fairly if a developer or the mobile home park owner chooses to apply for this opportunity.
Excuse me. Time. Para que
Oh.
Okay, can I put it at the para que please?
El plan de reubicación que los dueños van a tener que preparar, los dueños y parte del plan van a tener que investigar cada casa movible en el parque. Y en ese proceso van a determinar cuánto cuesta o qué es el valor de esa casa movible y si se puede mover a otro lugar. Y ahorita lo que están preguntando es que ahorita la ley dice que la casa movible se puede mover a otro parque que está hasta, no sabe si es 15 o 25 millas, pero la pregunta del señor, la respuesta para la pregunta es que el plan de reubicación va a tener que identificar cada casa movible y el valor y cuánto cuesta y qué es lo que se va a necesitar para moverla o buscar otro lugar para los residentes que viven en esa casa movible. ¿The appraiser? No, va a ser un appraiser que está certificado para hacer eso.
Quiero opinar algo. El condado de San Bernardino no está aprobando mover casas movibles más viejas de 2000. Todas nuestras trailers son más viejas de 2000. Nosotros no vamos a poder instalar ningún otro terreno. Les digo porque yo ya tengo un terreno San Bernardino County nos ha dado los permisos para hacerlo. So, todas nuestras casas se van a deshacer. No podemos, no vamos a calificar para instalarlas en un terreno nuevo porque el año de las casas no es permitido.
Solo más del 2000, entonces puedes reubicarla. En sí sería que ahí se quedara y se destruyera.
Lo único lo que vamos a tener que hacer es que nos evalúen nuestras casas y nos den un pago justo. Eso es todo.
Y ahorita como están valiendo, también
Con permiso, so the question that is on the table right now is if the county is not issuing permits for any mobile homes that are newer than 2000, then what does that mean for a mobile home that is prior to that, older than that date?
Interesting question.
Porque ya investigué yo ofrecí acá un permiso al condado de San Bernardino y no se han dado permiso.
Yeah, so it sounds like your mobile home unit is older than 20 years old. And so if part of the relocation process, they're not able to move that unit over, then that would be where they have to replace the unit with something else in lieu of that. Certainly as you get into the older units anyways, their ability to move gets to be a bit harder, and so they have to do analysis in the first place. Can we move this unit to another site? If the answer is no, then they have to do something else. Yeah, then they have to, yep, there's a whole other thing that they're then required to do.
Sí, el plan de reubicación va a tener que, si identifica que la casa movible no se puede mover por la edad o por los años, que van a tener, el plan va a tener que identificar otro lugar o otra casa movible que es para el residente. Y por eso, como sí, pues muy caro, porque es muy caro.
Ok, buenas tardes. Mi pregunta es, al final se va a mover todo, ya, sin mentiras, porque ella dijo que supuestamente no. So, al final se va a mover todo. O sea, van a mover las trailas, pues, al final. Deshacer. Porque ella había dicho que supuestamente no, que no firmaban, que no sé qué, que no venían. Pero como estoy escuchando, parece que sí. O sea, eso es lo final, ya para que la gente esté ya para irnos, para ver qué hacemos, porque que ustedes realmente no nos van a ayudar.
He said that it was said earlier that it wasn't going to happen, but now he's hearing that it is possible, so he's just asking what's going to happen. Yeah. Y como le digo, la verdad es que la ciudad no está obligando a los dueños para hacer esto. Si los dueños,
pero el dueño, él no le va a importar.
Sí.
O sea, el dueño sí los va a obligar a nosotros. Ustedes no nos están obligando a nosotros.
No.
Para nada. ¿Por qué? Porque la ciudad se está lavando las manos. Ustedes no tienen que ver nada con nosotros. O sea, los arrendatarios, los dueños, lo que seamos. Ustedes no tienen que ver nada con nosotros.
Pero
Ustedes tienen que ver con los dueños del parqueadero. Nada más. Pero el dueño del parqueadero sí va a tener que ver con nosotros. Y nosotros, ¿qué vamos a quedar?
Sí.
En el limbo.
Sí, y por eso la ciudad no está obligando a los dueños a convertir, pero como dice usted, los dueños pueden obligar a ustedes para moverse, ¿verdad? Sí, pero la protección que la ciudad está ofreciendo es, la ciudad tiene un proceso para los dueños si quieren convertir el parque, y ese proceso incluye muchas regulaciones y por ese proceso que implementó la ciudad, los dueños están diciendo no es algo que queremos hacer porque es muy caro y por las razones que estamos platicando aquí esta noche.
Es que date cuenta, mira, si ponen ustedes a hacer departamentos, ¿ok? Se ponen a hacer departamentos, Ok, está el departamento para fulano, sutano, mengano, como sea. ¿Qué va a pasar? ¿Qué va a pasar? Ustedes nos van ay, thank you, I got over it. Ustedes nos van a ayudar, como lo he repetido muchas veces. Ustedes nos van a ayudar a pagarlo, porque habemos muchas personas que ya no estamos en nuestros laureles, juventudes. Ya estamos casi pisando la tercera edad. Y no estamos como para que ya, ¿qué nos faltan? 2, 3 años para jubilarnos, como dicen, hacernos retire y no nos dan mucho. No nos dan como para que tengamos una renta de $1,500, de $2,000 que están ahorita las rentas. No nos van a dar eso. Ustedes nos van a dar la oportunidad de hacer eso, de tener un departamento que vayan a hacer de la magnitud de lo que pagamos ahorita. Yo no te voy a decir que pago como los demás lugares, pago $800, pero me van a dar esa oportunidad.
La ciudad no, pero la ciudad va a obligar a los dueños que le den esa oportunidad a ustedes.
Where can we find this provision that ensures that we're going to pay the same amount no matter where they relocate us? Because that's the one where we want to see it written on paper stating that if we're going to relocate you, you're going to pay the exact same thing guaranteed.
No, they're not into that. They said it's 30% above their,
Yeah.
up to 30%.
So the code section that we have, I believe that Jennifer wants me to highlight is 85.04033520 of the city's municipal code or development code for that. And so we can add that detail. I think one thing I want to continue to stress is all those provisions of what the park owner has to do for the residents to even move this idea forward, we're not touching that. None of that is changing with what we're proposing. And so, yeah, that's already in the code, and so it's not getting out of the code
Nothing
either.
of that's changing. Do you want us to read that number again? Yes. Okay, hold on. It's on our website, but, yep. And we'll cut and paste this section out and add this as another component to that website. But it is a part of the Yucaipa Municipal Code. It's called the Relocation Impact Report Content. And the section is 85.0403520. Nothing of that is changing. Correct. 85.0403520. And the header is Relocation Impact Report Content.
You want to go?
No. Sorry. ¿Hay alguna forma de que hagan una junta con los dueños de los parques? Que estén ellos presentes, solo para, no sé.
Para que veamos qué pensamientos tienen.
Ajá. Que nos quiten esta inquietud porque...
Poniendo a los dueños.
Sorry.
So he's asking if there's a way that we can have a meeting with the residents, the city, and the park owners to talk about this.
Es que yo no veo a nadie de ellos aquí, nunca están.
Ni los manager, nadie, no sé, nomás.
La vez pasada estaba el manager de nosotros.
Because they don't see any of the owners or the managers here, so that's what.
Solo para estar más tranquilos, ¿no?
No.
Okay.
We had Jim Chen owns several of the parks. He attended Mark's town hall meeting, and Richard, his regional rep or manager, Jim Chen is not interested in doing anything with his parks, nor have we been contacted by any of the other parks listed of the 7. There's been no interest at all. And if there was, you would be notified because it's a requirement of our local and state code. But Jim Chen is not interested in any of the parks he owns. And I know he owns Hitching Post, Wishing Well. He owns like 7 or 8, but not all of them are on the list. But he spoke up at Mark's meeting, and they are not interested.
So I think it's great tonight, by the way, we're having this exchange, and this is a meeting with the city officials. And it was also good to have a public town hall meeting where we come together and discuss this. A lot of the arguments it was 2016, it can already be done, all those types of things. But the one thing I want everybody to understand is your mobile home, a Chevy pickup truck is $45,000 these days. A minimum mobile home, just the mobile home itself, depends on the park you're in, is about $60,000. And I saw one listed for $198,000 in Executive Suite Mobile Home Park the other day. So there's a wide range of what mobile homes are worth, according to age, whether they'll pull apart when they're moved, and I disagree with Ms. Crawford's that there's a lot of pads available. At least I haven't seen it. In my mobile home park, there's not one single space available. It's, and it's got 176 mobile homes. So that is the one statement I want to make. The next question I have is the status of Ordinance 429. Because we came here Monday night 3 weeks ago, I believe, and we talked about it, and I asked for it to be tabled for more discussion, which is kind of what we're doing now. This is good. And much to the chagrin of a couple of city council people, it did get tabled by a city council member who requested to table so that you guys could have more notice and more time to discuss it. So that's a good thing. That's a really good thing. But what I'm worried about now is Monday when this comes up on the 25th, I believe it is.
23rd, yeah.
Is it 23rd?
Yep.
I'm terrible with numbers.
No, that's fine.
I can contest that, okay. Anyway, on Monday the 23rd when this comes up, it's been tabled. Now it's going to be put back on the calendar. Now there's something called a consent calendar where they take all these items, and they bunch them together, and they vote on them at once. Is this going to be not on the consent calendar? That's what I wanted to know.
Yeah, there'll be a presentation that will summarize the discussions and stuff, yes.
And I hope Mr. Justin Beaver and Mr. Matt Garner and Mr. Bobby Duncan, trying to list them all, Mr. Thor, and the last one I'm having trouble listing is?
Venable.
Venable, Chris
Thor.
Venable, are listening
Like
tonight.
Thor, but-
I hope you're listening very much because you can see there's a lot of concerned citizens. And this is because these are people. These are families. These are real people who need to live and to support their families and provide a roof over their heads. And however they can do it, these are good people. These are working people. You shake their hands and they've got calluses on them from their hard work. And they need their homes and they need the protections. They need to be able to have the security to live in a house that they're paying for fairly and to be able to stay there. And some of them are economically disadvantaged, like I am. Sometimes the rent doesn't always get paid on time. Sometimes there's a dog that barks, they don't like that, or the car's not registered or parked in the right spot. Or, it could be any number of reasons why a new mobile home park owner who comes in after this ordinance is passed, because the current mobile home, Mr. Chen says, hey, I can sell this for $35 or $45 million to a new developer who's going to come in and say, no problemo, as to quote Mr. Duncan at the last meeting. And we'll redevelop these parks. But meanwhile, we're going to spend 5 or 6 years, and one by one, everybody's going to get plucked out of there, so they won't have to relocate you. So don't worry about those repayments, because that's just my problem. This is why I'm saying this paves the way to do this. This is why I believe this is not a worthy thing for you city council members to vote on. And you need to represent the people first. I'm talking straight to the city council people who may be not here tonight but are listening. I plead with you, I beg with you to protect the people of Yucaipa. Thank you.
So I get the impression, and I would say I agree. Housing is expensive, and when I've done the housing kind of presentation about why do we have to talk about housing, is Maslow's hierarchy of needs. So every person, we need food, we need water, we need shelter. And so housing is very important, and so providing opportunities for safe housing for all Yucaipians is something that's important. And so that's why we have these discussions, that's why we have different provisions, is we want to make sure that we're providing more opportunities for housing for everyone in our community. And so, and make sure that they're attainable, affordable to everyone. When we did our housing element update, one of the discussions, if you asked, do you want more housing in the city? Most people are going to say no, but if you ask, can you afford to move into the city if you didn't, or could you afford to where you need to go? No, there really wasn't options available for it. And so that's something that we do need to look at, is making sure that whatever happens, things happen all the time with how property is owned, whatever else happens, is that we have a place that we can afford to be in and have a roof overhead, because the last thing we want to be is, you know, out on the streets, and that's a hard cycle to get out of in itself. And so that's why this discussion, why finding different housing strategies is so important to the community, because if we're not looking at it, we're going to be priced out, and none of us are going to be able to afford a roof over our head.
So based on a lot of the questions that we received here tonight, I think especially the ones that we received in Spanish, I think what we need to do is we already provided the municipal code section, but I think we need to provide you at least with information so you can become more familiar with what that conversion plan application process and the relocation plan includes. En Spanish, muchas de las preguntas aquí esta noche fueron sobre el plan de reubicación que los dueños de los parques van a tener que preparar para completar una aplicación para convertir el parque, y vamos lo que vamos a hacer es no podemos mandar porque la reunión de los concejales es el lunes, pero en el website de la ciudad y en otros modos vamos a repartir esa información para que conozcan esa información y para que tengan la información sobre qué es lo que es necesario incluir en el plan de reubicación para los dueños si los dueños quieren convertir el parque.
Nada más que no nos dejen como homeless, por favor. Si quieren dejar los homeless aquí, nos quieren hacer homeless también.
Tengo una pregunta. La conversión es reversible.
Puede venir.
Es sencilla, puede ser reversible. La conversión.
His question is whether, if a conversion is approved, whether it can be reversed or not.
¿Es reversible or not?
The conversion application?
The process, once it's converted, to convert it back to a mobile home park later.
No. It can be reversed. It can be reversed.
If an application per state law is submitted to the city and the city council reviews it, it can be, depending on the parameters in there, it can be denied by the city. If there's components in there, if you read it, where some of it is even the residents can sign off. They agree to the terms that the park owner is proposing. If they don't, those are some of the things also that the council would look at and determine what would be fair and equitable that is in line with state law. And if the park owner chooses not to provide that, the application would be denied.
Yeah, the reason I ask is because I see a lot of families that are concerned and worry about their properties or their credit cards. That's the reason I'm asking this. If it can be reversal or not.
So I think it maybe depends on where at. So there may be grounds for why it's rejected based on meeting the relocation requirements.
I think know if they can be brought back, they will be listed as one of the 7. Like, do they want them out of the overlay? Is that the question?
I guess, depending on what that question is, like, let's say they go through the process, everyone gets paid, and everyone's moved into different spots. The park owner couldn't go and bring in a bunch of coaches back and do that. I'm sorry. Okay.
Okay, the process was accepted in 2016, right? Mm-hmm. Okay, now that can be reversed or not?
So you would want to do a general plan amendment to remove that overlay district and remove all the policies. That would be ultimately a city council decision. It would conflict with the city's general plan and housing element, but that would be a policy level decision for city council to consider. But there would be a number of steps that would be involved with that.
They also approved it last year as the amendment that got approved by the state.
Yeah, so essentially we would, because it's in the general plan and the housing element, we would have to have a few different steps all happen together with it. And if we don't, then the city would fall out of compliance with state law. And so, and then it would go back to the conversion process under state law, where any part could go through that under the provisions with state law too. Because state law already does allow for conversion of mobile home parks. And so we tried to give much more protection on a number of the different facets that go into it, but if we went back, it would just fall under state law. So a park owner could still do the conversion process pursuant to state law, independent of what we have, if that was the case. Yeah, it'll be streaming, and so we all get to hear how lovely we sound on over the screen. I know, Mark, you do radio, so you probably are used to hearing your voice. Hearing yourself, I'm still not used to that, but that's okay.
Still not used to what, Barney? I missed that.
Hearing myself over the microphone, that's
why I kept moving the microphone, because we're live on the air.
Are there any other questions? If you do, feel free to come into City Hall or call us, and we will come to the counter. If you only speak Spanish, we will bring staff to the counter with us to continue to answer questions that you have. We are here to provide you the information, and any additional things that we can add to the website, we will do that. But please don't hesitate to come down to City Hall or give us a call.
Si tienen más preguntas o quieren más información, City Hall está abierto de las 7:30 hasta las 6 y pueden venir aquí y preguntar, y aquí estamos para contestar sus preguntas y también para darle más información y especialmente información sobre el plan de reubicación que estamos platicando aquí esta noche.
Entonces, ¿crees que sí? Antes de irnos. Entonces, ¿crees que sí podremos tener otra junta con los propietarios del terreno donde estamos rentando? Y ya ahora sí, para ya no darle tanta vuelta al asunto. Para ya de una vez, ahora sí, de que no estén dándonos tantas vueltas y vueltas y volvemos a lo mismo. ¿Crees que se pueda?
Her question is whether we can have that meeting with the park owners and them.
Porque al fin de cuentas, desde el 2014-16 está la propuesta y no han desistido de la propuesta. So esto va a seguir.
You can
Porque
always
sí.
have a meeting with your park owner and ask them if they're interested in selling. If they sell your park to someone else, you don't need the city to communicate with your park owner to say, are you looking to sell this park and convert it? And if they're, yeah, no, I can't afford it, no way. Who knows what they're going to say? But I think, yes, absolutely. Talk to your park owner to see if they're even interested in conversion.
Ustedes los residentes pueden tener una junta con el dueño del parque, pero si nosotros les pedimos esa junta, ellos no van a ser interesados porque no están interesados ahorita para convertir el parque. No les conviene a ellos porque no tienen planes de convertir el parque ahorita.
¿Ustedes como ciudad lo pueden obligar con multas y grandes?
No. Pero ustedes sí están interesados en comprar.
Can you talk in the mic?
Ellos sí.
El dueño no estará interesado en vender, pero ustedes sí están interesados al final de comprar. Porque ustedes son los que van a comprar, no el dueño.
No, la ciudad no va a comprar el parque.
Entonces, ¿quién es el que está organizando eso de los proyectos?
Si no la
Si no es la ciudad, ¿quién es?
La ciudad aprueba los proyectos, pero si el dueño, los dueños de los parques son los que...
City doesn't want to buy the parks, no.
So who's the guy to
The
do the
park
projects?
owner, the person that owns your park owner, the one who owns the land.
Él es el que convertirlo. Okay.
I don't know what park you live in, but if you need the name and phone number of who owns your park, call me tomorrow and I'll provide you the information. It's a public document. I can provide you with whatever you want.
And just before we wrap up, the good city of Yucaipa, I would like to say, let's applaud them for having this meeting in the first place. Okay. It's just the moderator and me that comes out for the radio station. But there's also another place you can go besides the city, and that's the Mobile Home Assistance Center. Information, it's HOD, housing, okay, and community development, okay? So it's hod.ca.gov. It's in the bottom of this paper I just gave you, okay? So once again, that's hod.ca.gov. That's the website, and you can find it there. Or the number to call is 1-800-952-8356. That's 1-800-952-8356 at the bottom of this too. And of course, Jennifer Crawford loves to get your calls. So just give her a call.
But
And-
we also have a lot of that information
And
on
Jordan?
our city, are you done, Mark? On our city website under mobile home.
I
And
guess I'm
if
done.
there's information that is an entity that you feel like we don't have it covered, please tell us and we'll post that. Our goal is that that website is your one-stop shop for information. We have links to HCD. We have links to legal aid. If you have questions regarding what's on your rent, you should be calling me or our staff. If you have issues with code enforcement, you should be calling us. We are here for you. And if you don't speak English, that's okay. We have staff that have been tested and they know how to read and write. And we'll bring them to the counter and we'll meet your timeline. You tell us when you want to come in and we'll make sure that we have the information there and ready for you. We've been here.
Hit the
Just
red
call us.
And if you see something at your park where you go, hey, can the owner be doing something? Let us know. My code enforcement staff wants to make sure that they're following the rules, and it's easy to catch it before they do something versus afterwards. And so, we definitely want to respond to all that stuff too.
And I forgot one other thing, and he's standing right here, Mr. Matthew. The Yucaipa Mobile Home Residents Association, YMRA, is meeting Saturday, second Saturday of the month. They'll be meeting this Saturday at 10? Was it last Saturday? Oh, okay, darn it. So bad with numbers. Anyway, I have a lot of things to remember, a lot of events, and in the profession I do too, so I don't have my notes in front of me. But they do meet the second Saturday of every month, and you're more than welcome to come and join. YMRA stands for Army backwards, by the way, just in case you have trouble with that acronym. Army backwards is YMRA. So, and we thank them too. Thank you.
Thank you guys all for coming out.